Okay, we're recording now. Welcome,
Hey,
class,
how's it
to
going?
another interview. Andreas Lozano is here with us today. He's gonna give us his perspective on the real estate business or industry, or where he's come from, where he's at today. So Andreas, thank you for joining us. This is the real estate appraisal class for Florida International University. And on behalf of them, thank you for sharing your time and being with us for this short interview.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. So I've been waiting to do this and talk to you. And so why don't you tell the class where are you from? What's your background?
Sure. Just on a personal level, I'm originally from the Dominican Republic. I was born there. I lived there till I was about 5 years old, and then moved to the United States. I moved to Miami. So I'm 36 now, and I've been here 31 years. So I grew up and went to school in Miami, in this general area, and in large part, that's why I have such a passion for real estate, because I've been able to kind of see the city of Miami and South Florida in general kind of grow into what it has become today, and go through, several cycles. But primarily, the last two cycles have really been where a lot of the growth has occurred. But anyway, just kind of seeing all that transpire just kind of piqued my interest and
Very cool.
captivated me.
You have any siblings or?
So I do have three siblings, two half brothers and a half sister. One lives in New York, and the other two are still in the Dominican. I'm the
Are
third
any of those in real estate either?
I'm the only one in real estate. So yeah, I'm the loner. Yeah.
What about your parents? Were they in real estate or
Yeah,
anything kind of relative to it?
my dad was a CPA by trade, and he was a general manager of a pretty prominent hotel in the Dominican Republic. So to some degree, asset management, property management, so maybe some real estate related work there, but not particularly. I mean, but he was essentially an accountant by trade. My mother's a pharmacist, so she's in the medical field, so to speak, and still practices today. Yeah.
So were they happy that the decision that you made to go into real estate, or did she want you to be a doctor, or did they want you to be a lawyer?
No, they were pretty open-minded about my interest growing up. I played soccer, so I was an athlete, and from time to time, I developed some various interests. There was a time where I wanted to be a Navy SEAL and things like that. But they were always just generally supportive, so long as I had a goal in mind, and they saw me working towards that goal. They never really were fixated on me joining one particular career or industry per se. They were happy to see that I was, focused in my sports and my studies, and looking to go to college and get an advanced education. And eventually I found my way into real estate. So not really. They're happy with what I'm doing.
And now you have your own kids, or one child, or?
Yeah, so I'm married. I've been married 7 years. I'll be 8 years next July, and I have
Congratulations.
two boys. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I have two boys. I have a 5-year-old and a 12-month-old. He'll be 1 year in a few days here. Yeah.
Do you want them to go and follow your footsteps and go into real estate as well, or you're just gonna let the chips fall as they fall?
Yeah, I'll let the chips fall where they may. Obviously, I'm going to have them involved. My 5-year-old, he's already kind of, building things, and he's aware that daddy builds buildings, and, he's kind of taken an interest to it. So obviously, I'll bring him around the job site. I've taken him out to foundation pours, like the Aston Martin condo building here in downtown Miami. The contractor on that
The largest cement pour ever in Miami-Dade, correct?
Miami, that's correct. The contractor on that project is Coastal, and they're the contractor on one of the projects that I'm doing, which is Luma, which is a high-rise in downtown Miami. So the guys let me bring my son out, which is not something that you would normally get to do when you put a vest on him, put a hard hat on him. I actually brought him on site during the pour. He loves it. So, I'll bring him out, I'll engage him and try to teach him. And if he continues to show an interest, obviously he'll have the advantage of being a little bit ahead of the game, because he'll kind of get that exposure from a very early age. But, if he wants to go into another industry, it is what it is. The goal with kids is to just stimulate them, encourage them, and make sure that they're on the right path. And, you can't force them to do something that they don't want to do. But so far, he seems to have an interest in it.
No, I agree. I have a 9-year, my son is 14. He's in ninth grade right now. So first year of high school.
Okay.
And,
Big
he's
year.
watched me appraise property after property. He knows more about, income statements and all this stuff, but he could care less about real estate. Like you said, we try to direct them and give them good values, and then let them be, and let them find their own path. But anyways, this is about you, not our kids. So let's see. So okay, so from the Dominican Republic, and I don't think we said that you work for Zom Development, but you do. And so, is your title, you are a developer now? Is that you
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
introduce yourself?
Industry language is the developer. The official title. So if you look at my business card, it says development manager. But essentially, in the industry, if you come up to a multifamily site, people will ask, well, who's the developer? So whether it's, let's say, Related or Zom or Mill Creek or one of the other major institutional developers, that's a development company. But every project will have a development manager that's assigned to that project, who's really the developer in the sense that you're the one who's doing all the legwork. So like George Perez, just Greg West is not actively out there going to this meetings with the city, with the county, directing the architect, directing the contractor, and the other various design consultants. There's a development manager who's assigned to that project, and they really run point on that project from beginning to end for the execution of that project. So that's essentially what I do. So there's a lot of different disciplines that I get to work on, from the legal side when you're going through entitlement, and then to the design process when you're working with the architect, landscape architect, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil engineer, designing the project, to the construction management process, managing the budget, so financial, underwriting the deal, making design decisions, so finishes, interior design, marketing. So that's also what I love a lot about what I do, is that you really get to do a little bit of everything. So every day, and I can be on a call with a ad marketing agency working through the concept development for that project, right? So you're really kind of doing a lot of different things, which makes it interesting and keeps things
So
fresh and
that's your
exciting.
current position. So take us back now. How did you take us to how you got there? Where did you go
Sure,
to college, and what were your interests while in college? And
sure.
take us to that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned earlier, I grew up playing soccer. So, I ended up getting a few offers to a few different schools, but I ended up wanting to stay in Florida.
Mhm.
So I actually started at Barry University. I played for soccer at Barry University, and
Oh, nice.
then I played 2 years there. They actually just won a national title this past year. Um, Played 2 years there, and then I transferred to FAU in
Mhm.
Boca, and I played there. So anyway, right around that time, this was I graduated in 2009. I actually graduated a little bit late because Barry's a private Catholic university, so some of their courses are religiously, based. So I
Mhm.
lost some credits transferring over, and also as a student athlete, you usually take a few less classes, so you're kind of a little bit behind. Anyway, so when I went over to FAU, I graduated in 2009 with my undergrad. Again, I'm actually a little older than that would indicate, but this is right in the middle of the downturn, so it
Mhm.
was really hard to get work anywhere, much less the real estate industry. But nonetheless, that was kind of where I wanted to focus on. So I was just out there kind of applying to internships. I did 2 or 3
What did you
non-paying.
take in school though? What was your major? What was your
I
undergrad major?
actually, people laugh when they hear this, but I triple majored. I did finance, business management, and real estate. And then I did the master's program at FIU, so I have the master's at FIU as well.
And you were an athlete?
Um, and I was a student athlete. That's right.
Wow, you kind of smashed that stigma of, athletes not really, going after their potential, and here you are, a triple threat. Jesus.
Yeah, it took some time for me to kind of work there. I didn't have the same mentality as a freshman as I did as I got older and more mature, and kind of really started to focus in on what I wanted to do.
Where did that
And
come from? Like that whole overachievement. I mean, that's really overachieving there.
I don't know. maybe sports, just the competitive nature of being in sports and, you know, being driven, and you know that, okay, this is the objective. We're going to train, we're going to work hard. And when it comes up and it's game time, you know, we're here to win. I think you just kind of develop that mentality. And to a degree, it starts to carry over into other aspects of your life, including work.
Now, did you
school.
finish that all in 4 years, or was that were you an
Oh,
extended?
no. So I took 7 years to graduate, because that's why I've been transferring over and losing credits, and then, excuse me, adding other majors. When you combine all that together, the loss of credits and the fact that I was actually taking 4 classes a semester instead of 5, I was a little bit behind. So yeah, it took me a little bit longer, and that's why I said graduating in, even though I graduated in 2009, you know, that it would lead you to believe I'm a little younger than I am. But
so restate the three majors you had.
I have a BA in finance and a BA in business management and a BA in real estate as well. So
wow, that's impressive, man. That's wow, that's great. And then you went to grad school.
And then I got a few years of work experience before I finally went and signed up and applied to take the master's program at FIU at the Brickell campus.
At FIU.
At FIU.
So what was your first job out of college?
While I was at FAU, I started applying for internships. I did a few unpaid internships, one at a really small boutique hedge fund that was investing here and there. That lasted for a little bit. But I eventually got an opportunity with a small firm. Funny enough, the principal of the firm was an appraiser by trade.
Really?
Former Arthur Andersen, former Cushman Wakefield valuation. And what he did was he basically went out on his own, started this boutique firm, and we were doing tax appeal work for all the major tract home developers, Lennar, D.R. Horton, K. Hovnanian, Standard Pacific, and a few other, you know, smaller, regional, less-known privates. But all in all, and I'm going to back up a little bit in a minute here, but all in all, we probably did about $4.5 billion worth of tax appeal work. A downturn. I think we have the largest mass settlement in Miami-Dade County in history, because, you know, all these guys got caught with their pants down. They had a lot of inventory lots and land, you know, when the market crashed, and they were having to pay taxes. For those who don't know, the students, you know, having to pay taxes on all this property, and we would essentially come in and put together, you know, an appraisal report and petition the assessed value of that property and make a contingency fee based on the reduction. So when I started with that group, it was a 6-month internship. I completed the internship and, you know, went about my business. It was done. A few months after completing the internship, you know, I'm out in the job market, and really, you know, difficult market. And the principal calls me back and says, "Hey, listen, I'm at a point now where, you know, I can afford to bring you in, you know, full time. You know, things are really picking up." So I ended up taking a full-time position with him. And that was my first real gig. Yeah, I mean, obviously I was a paid internship, so I was making some money, but, you know, nothing to write home about, and it wasn't, you know, it was short term. But now I was a full-time employee, you know, of a company that was doing real work with real players, and I was really getting exposed to a lot of stuff. I mean, I was driving project sites every quarter and literally taking a site plan that was clear, and if you know, if a housing, if there was a start on a house, I'd color it yellow, and if a house finished, I'd color it orange. And I'd go back and sit down on my desk, and I would literally have a lot, you know, an Excel sheet put together, block and lot for that entire community, and I would go in there and then code that based on the coloring, right? So if it was yellow start, and eventually what you'd have is you'd have actual data: how many starts per month, how many starts per quarter, how many completions, how long was it taking the developer to complete a house, what their pricing was, because they were our clients, so we had access now to their pricing data, premiums, etc. And we were using that information to prepare these appraisal reports and petition their tax assessment. But also we were building essentially a database of information that we could market and sell to other developers. You know, here's what your competition is doing. You know, here's what they're building. Here's what they're not building, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Was that only in Miami-Dade, or which area were you working in?
This was across the state.
Across the whole state?
Yeah, so I would literally have to drive up across several counties, yeah. The firm was based in Boca Raton, excuse me. It was called Sun State Advisory. The firm has since he's moved up to New York and he's working mainly in appraisal now. But right around that time was when the market kind of double dipped. I don't know how many of you really know, but if you go back and historically kind of study what happened during that time, we had we had the big drop off, and then things kind of started to get a little better, and we thought we were going to start working our way out of that recession, and that the market was going to get a little better, and then it just kind of dropped again. And coincidentally, right around that time, I get a call from CBRE. And CBRE called me because in between the 6-month internship and when he called me back to come on full time, I was out there applying. And CBRE was one of the groups that I had applied to. So they called me up and say, hey, listen, we among all the commercial real estate services that we provide, we have a global research and consulting department. And we put together market reports and we manage a large database, track all these properties. And we saw on your resume that you've been doing essentially the same thing for some pretty, prominent clients, and you've been managing a large database. So we think your experience translates. Would you be interested in interviewing for a researcher position here in our Miami office? And CBRE, me being a real estate guy, wanting to get into the field, and obviously I was, keeping up with everything that's going on. I know who all the players were, and I knew who CBRE was. So when they came knocking, I was like, this is a great opportunity. I can't turn this down. So I went through the interview process, and sure enough, ended up getting an offer from them. And, it was a tough decision, but I had to part ways with Sun State Advisory, and I took this opportunity and then moved over to CBRE. So I spent some time in their global research and consulting department as a researcher, got promoted to research coordinator, and then eventually got the TAP, if you will, which is what everybody in commercial real estate brokerage for CBRE, these type of groups, Cushman, wants. And I got offered a financial analyst position with one of the investment sales teams there. They focused on retail property. So I spent some time with them as an analyst. And then I ended up getting an offer from a group, one of their clients, actually, a group called RAM, Realty Partners. They're based out of Palm Beach Gardens, and they essentially operate as a private equity fund. So their source of capital is private equity. They raise the funds. The funds are already earmarked, and they focused on retail and multifamily ground-up development, so new construction, as well as existing acquisitions. When I came in, my focus was really supposed to be helping with underwriting of existing acquisitions. But again, fast forward a few years later, the market was starting to heat up again a little bit. We kind of made our way out of that downturn, and cap rates were starting to get really compressed. And that the fund that they were operating out of was written up during the downturn, essentially. So they weren't really competitive. So we didn't find ourselves really buying anything. All of our work was almost all of our work was new ground up development. So I found myself working on a lot of ground up development deals. Slowly but surely, I got another tap. The managing director of the multifamily division at RAM, asked for me to be promoted and moved into development. So at that point, I got a development associate, which is basically you're now supporting a development manager.
What's the time length you're staying at these positions?
Yeah, so I was at Sun State for probably close to 2 years.
Okay.
Between the 6 months I did as an internship and about a year and some change that I was there full time.
And that really sets you up for your next leg on what?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I like to communicate to, and again, it's not like I'm, I've got 40 years of experience, but I've got
just 3 majors.
Yeah, just 3 majors. But I've been around long enough to kind of have some perspective. And one of the things I like to communicate is that while it's happening, you don't see it. But slowly but surely, as things develop and you get opportunities that present themselves and you take advantage of them, and you build your resume, you build your experience, like it all starts to make sense. So like, in 2008, 2009, when I was pulling my hair out, it was just incredibly hard to get any job. And I was doing unpaid internships. And I was incredibly frustrated having spent all this time, working hard as an athlete to get a scholarship, working hard as a student to graduate and get employment and be able to go and buy a car, nothing expensive, but, just feel like you've achieved something. Yeah. And here you are, you can't even get a job. But sure enough, all the work that I did becoming president of the Financial Management Association when I was at FAU, all these little things are what eventually got me the opportunity. So, stick with it, work hard, do all the little extras, and it's the accumulation of all those things that get you those opportunities down the road. And it's hard to see in the moment, but down the road, you look back and you start realizing, like, yeah, like I got that opportunity because of that internship that I did and the work that I did there. I wouldn't have, and I am here today because of the next sequential step that I took. So,
that's great
so
advice.
it was about,
Don't quit.
yeah, it's
basically.
about, yeah, stick with it. It's hard to see it in the moment, but you build a house one brick at a time. You can't see the house until it's done, but you build it once. So those are the little bricks that you're kind of, accumulating and putting together. So I spent about 2 years at Sun State, about 2 years at CBRE, about almost 3 years at RAM, and I've been at Zom now for 4 years. 4 years, literally this month. Oh, excuse me, December next month. So that's to directly answer your question, kind of the general duration.
Yeah, it seems like the higher you got up, you stayed a little longer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, my career, I have never, I've got good relationships with everybody that I've worked with. RAM, I mean, they understood why I was leaving. I wasn't jumping ship for 5 or 10 or 15 or 30K. It was really an opportunity, one of those opportunities in your career to take a big leap forward, become a DM at another top firm, make a lot more money, something that they just weren't in a position to match at that time. And, to this day, we have a great relationship. So I've been fortunate in that sense that, 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 or 4 years, but it's been, very natural, organic process. I wasn't out there just kind of looking for the next best thing, because that will burn bridges. Do not do that. Make sure that when you make a transition, it's the right move and that you've thought it through.
I was going to ask you that. How were these opportunities kind of showing themselves?
Again, I mean, with Sun State, I just applied. I can give you a little bit of background there. So with Sun State, I applied through the school like job board, and I went into interview, and I never really even heard back. And I literally bothered the guy so much that eventually he wrote me back an email. He said, "Come back in." And when I came back in, he was like, "So I wanted to offer you the job." And I'm in New York all the time. I'm here 1 week in New York the next week. And then we had another associate that was working. I mean, this was literally a 3-man team at the time.
Wow.
And he says to me, but I want to give you the job because, I interviewed a few people and no one has been as persistent and followed up as like the way you have. Like I was not responding, not because I wasn't interested, or I really just don't have the time. But what I appreciated about you was the fact that you were relentless in your follow-up, and like that's what I need. When I'm in New York, I need to know that you're here and that you're going to be working and that you don't need me looking over your shoulders and encouraging me. Like, you were hungry to get the position. That's what got me that job. So that's how that opportunity presented itself. CBRE was, some degree luck, some degree the fact that I had this work experience, right? I built those bricks that I kind of put together to that point. Got me an interview.
You were going to their websites, or like you said that you knew who CBRE was and you knew that company. I mean, do you think that students should know who are the players out there who are working at these firms, and how do they come up with that information?
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, I can sincerely say that I was passionate about real estate. So 2003, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when I was in school, I mean, I was just, drooling, kind of looking at everything that was going on, all the condos, the whole craze, wishing that I could buy a really nice fancy condo, like what was going on. So I just kind of became familiar with who the developers were, right? The Related of the world, and so on and so on. Bovis Land Lease and all the other contractors I would drive around and really just, go drive and drive Miami Beach or the Isles and whatnot, and dream about buying a really nice house just because I liked architecture, I liked design, I liked it all. So I would literally drive around and go look at houses or go look at some of the high rises that are being constructed. So you drive the site and you would see the signage for who the architectural firm is, who the contractor is, and you start to, I mean, it's just literally pounding the pavement. You start to internalize all that stuff. And then obviously being in school, we would have assignments and certain projects, and I would research certain firms, or I would go and try to apply for an internship. And within 3 or 4 years, I mean, like, for someone who wasn't even out in the workforce, like, I was fairly knowledgeable about who was who. and what a company like CBRE did, right? And who were the major contractors building the condos around here? Who were the major developers and so forth? So again, when CBRE came knocking, like I knew very well, like they're the big gorilla in the room. Like if you can get a job, it's the equivalent of going to work for Goldman Sachs if you're in the financial industry. Like once you get a gig there, you can work anywhere, right? So you know, that was kind of how I was aware of who's who, and it just came organically because like that's what I wanted to do. I was passionate about it, and I mean that's the best way.
Let me roll back real quick though. I just want to we kind of skipped right over FIU, and since this is an FIU interview, the grad classes, the misery. How do you feel about that program and going through that? And what year did you graduate from that? 2014. How did you, what did you think about it? Was it beneficial?
Yeah, it was beneficial. I mean, the way I look at it is this way. I think like in anything in life, you get out of something what you put into it, right? So if you go in there and you kind of haphazardly just kind of make your way through the program, you're not going to get the same amount of benefit. Also, the program's different for different people. And what I mean by that is, certain people in the program, if you join the program and you're in that cohort, certain people are going to be fresh out of undergrad, right? So their perspective, their level of experience is going to be unique to them. Me, I had already worked at Sun State at that point. I was at CBRE. Excuse me, I was at RAM, but I had already worked at CBRE. So I already knew how to work in Argus. I had already underwritten deals in Argus, right? So the value from just the sheer content of the courses that you were taking was a little bit, wasn't as high for me because I had the benefit of some work experience and, I kind of knew how things worked. But obviously there are things that I was able to refresh, concepts, right, in finance that I was able to refresh and touch on and kind of polish. So for me, the value was a little bit more weighted on the relationships that I got to build there, yourself, the way we're on the board now, the professors that I run the program, and the professional contacts that I've made, as well as, the power that a degree has, right? So I have a master's, and that carries a certain amount of weight. So for example, when I made the transition over to Zom, can I directly say, hey, they hired me because I have a master's degree? No, my hiring senior vice president didn't say, if you didn't have this master's, I wouldn't have considered you. But I'm sure it was a brick in the house somewhere. It was a variable in the equation. It was one of the other little things that you do that you don't see the benefit at that time, but at some point in the future, it pays off. So, for me, I valued more the relationships, brushing up and fine tuning some of the concepts that maybe I wasn't working in on a day-to-day basis, and having that degree, being able to say, I am at an advanced level. So definitely, I think it's a plus. I think if you're serious about a long-term career in somewhere in the real estate industry, you need to do it. And FIU is a great place to do it at. I mean, you're in a major metropolitan area where there are a lot of big firms that are doing a lot of sexy, projects, and you can get access to all that. It's right in your backyard. You go to a school like UCF or FSU or UF, and they have good academic programs, but you're not going to be as immersed in it. Like the game is right here in our backyard, right?
Yeah, and they're recruiting right out of FIU too. Yeah. So I mean, that's another, going in there, like you're saying, making,
So yeah.
So okay, so you kind of brought us up to date so now you're at Zom Development, and was that the path the whole time, was to be a developer? It's what it seems like that. It seems like that's kind of like what you paved, but was that the path back in the day, like when you were just trying out to get a job? Or, I mean,
so when I was when I was at like Sun State, I absolutely wanted to be a developer. Like that was the goal.
It was like a hidden, you didn't tell people or something, or did people know that about you? Or?
I think my boss at the time knew, because we would have conversations, like I know that we're consulting these guys now, but like, could we do this? Have you ever tried to do it? And we would have conversations where he had tried to partner up with some of his friends and from the industry who had done well for themselves financially and had a little bit of money, a few coins they could rub together and have the experience, right? So they can collectively pull together their individual experiences and try to execute on a deal. They never did it, but I think he had the same ambitions as well. So he was aware of it, and I was certainly that was kind of where my head was at. By the time I was at CBRE, though, and again, I don't know the students here. For those of you who don't know, a lot of these commercial brokers, that are selling these institutional assets, they make a lot of money, and it's not all about the money. But when you're a young kid, kind of a few years out of school, and you're working in the industry that you love, so the passion, you've checked that box, right? You have a passion for what you're doing. I had a moment where I wanted to be an investment sales broker. I wanted to be the Chris Lee or the Charles Foschini and so on and so on.
Yeah.
But then as I got over into the analyst role and started really to get a better view behind the scenes as to, what the institutions were actually executing on the deals and buying properties and developing and getting them, I started saying, well, this is again more like what I originally wanted to do. Maybe I want to be on the buy side of things. And that's how I kind of returned back home, went full cycle. Like, I want to be an owner developer of that side. I want to be the client.
Is there a certain section that's sexy to you on the owner developer side? I mean, you're looking at like townhouses, single family, high rise.
I like multifamily.
Multifamily.
The only other space that I would really want to probably do is condo, and the only reason why is because on the high end condo side, you've got some pretty hefty budgets, so you can really get crazy and creative with finishes in the units. On the multifamily side, especially groups like Zom, we do really high-end work. So most of our common areas are going to be as nice, if not nicer, than a lot of the condo projects that you see in downtown Miami, Brickell, et cetera. But when it comes to the units, we can't compete with condo because our budgets are different. You can't justify putting in Miele appliances and marble flooring in an apartment deal because you'll never be able to charge the rent to recoup the investment. Yeah. Versus on the condo side, you can really get crazy with the finishes and whatnot, and you're selling them for $1 million, $2 million, so you can justify spending $700,000 on a unit, right? You can't do that in multifamily. So to an extent, because of that, I would love to maybe at some point, and we don't do condo at Zom, so but I would
sounds
love
like the next step, huh? That's the next level of finding where you're going to be at, or do you have a timeline of like? When do you do it on your own, or what does that look like? What's the future look like for you?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I was like, hey, do you want to kind of start your own firm? And I don't want to say no. I'm not. It's not something that I seriously consider. I'm fortunate enough to have a few extra nickels on the side that I can do some investing on the side. Nothing crazy, but I can diversify my portfolio, if you will. So I get I get to scratch the itch, if you will, on doing some form of investment with that. But in what I do as a development manager, I have the benefit of getting a piece of the deal. So, I get the benefit of being an owner and saying I'm an owner in that building, and working within a framework of a complex development company that has a lot of very experienced, high quality professionals that are involved in managing the process, right? And the framework's already there. So it doesn't, there's really no need for me to go off and start my own firm and try to do things on my own, because I'm essentially, doing the same thing now, but within the framework. So with an existing company with history, with existing relationships with the banks, with the capital partners, so there's really no need to do that. So I don't know that I ever will feel the need to go off and do that. As you make your way up the ladder on the development side, you get more and more of the deal. So you're a participant. Your capital is treated at the GP level. So you're an owner, and you're making good money. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah, there's not necessarily.
So you might have found a home. You might be here for a good long run.
Yeah, I could potentially see myself where I'm at now at Zom for a long time. Listen, things change. We all know that, but for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future, right now, I don't see a need or have a reason to make a change.
You mentioned side projects or passion projects. Do you do any like single family flipping or any have you invested with friends with like 16 units or town out,
Yeah, I can run you through a couple of deals that I've done. I bought a place, and I did that. This was the first one I did. I did it with my mom, and we bought a house in Port St. Lucie, which we renovated and eventually sold. Um, I've bought a bank note. So I bought a note from a bank on a property or a loan that was not performing, and went through the whole process of hiring an attorney, eventually getting throwing out all their defenses and getting a judgment. Eventually foreclosed on the house, put in a few dollars to bring it up to speed, and sold it, and did pretty well on that deal. So I bought bank notes. Those are hard to come by though. So I haven't. The last one I did was going on a year now, and I haven't been able to buy any more since. And then I have some property in the Dominican Republic. There's a large tract that my family owns, my dad owns, which we're working on some things there. I actually have a meeting down there next month for a potential JV partnership that we might do with a group. And then I have a piece of land that I own just myself on the North Coast, where I'm designing a villa that I'm going to build there. So it would be kind of a private residence, but also something that I can put into like a luxury rental program and do weddings and events and whatnot. So I can monetize it to some extent. If I can make it a profitable business venture, great. But I'm okay with just subsidizing the cost of having a vacation home in the Dominican Republic. So,
yeah.
but I get to have the fun of, I've hired an architect, I've hired engineers, I'm going through the design process. I went down there for years trying to find the right piece of property, negotiating that. So again, I get to do what I like to do.
Yeah, and you're kind of dabbling a little risk adverse because it's your own property. So you're not really, if you mess up, it's your own property.
In a way, exactly. Yeah. It's like, if I don't knock it out of the park, it's okay because it's really for personal use. But hey, if I can, and who knows, so here's a thought I've had. If I execute and find that it is a profitable business venture, what I would be interested in doing is starting to just buy up more parcels along that coastline. So really nice beaches along that coastline. And there's a lot of available land there still. And then maybe doing some spec or custom home, build another one. And it's really just for the rental program, big luxury vacation rentals, and doing that. So that's something that maybe I can see myself doing in the future, but right now
you're already doing it, man. There's no seeing yourself doing it. You're already on that route, man. Come on.
Yeah, right now it's just my personal place. So that's one thing.
That's great.
Business is a whole other ballgame, but that there's a potential for that to happen. I'm really eager and curious to see how this one goes, and maybe I'll do that.
That's great.
I would be fine.
We hope you're the best, man. And then the last thing is, so you're actually a professor also at FIU. How did that come about?
I, after graduating the master's program, being in development, got asked a couple of times if I would be okay speaking in the development course in the graduate program. So I went back a couple of times to just kind of give a general presentation on development and how that process works, and just kind of giving some insight as to what I do day to day. So I got a little taste of kind of, being not a professor, but coming in and talking to students and so on. And then I was fortunate enough, like yourself, to be invited to be on the board, and got a little bit more involved with the university that way. And at one of our board meetings, they announced that there was an adjunct professor position opening up for an undergraduate course at the main campus. And I kind of like, I think I could do that. It's kind of like the guest speaking I've been doing, and I think it'd be a fun, cool thing to do. Kind of a feather in your cap, but also a nice way to give back and kind of give give the students some advice and help them out the same way some people did for me when I was, in their shoes. So I expressed interest, and again, it just kind of came together. And this fall semester was the first semester that I was an adjunct professor teaching an undergraduate course at the main campus. And I just spoke with Dr. Baraha yesterday, and it seems like they're gonna bring me back for the spring semester as well. So
Congratulations,
I've enjoyed
man.
it.
That's great. Well, it sounds like you have a bright future, man. You've had a great, collegiate run. You know, triple threat there and came out, and you've been hitting it out of the park ever since with, you're just doing great, and you can show your passion comes across when you talk about real estate and, who you work for, who you have worked for in the past, and what you desire and what you have in your head for the future. So, man, we congratulate you. And listen, Andreas, on behalf of Florida International University and the real estate and the appraisal class here, thank you for sharing your story and your time and your advice. And thank you, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm glad to have had the opportunity to talk to you guys, and consider myself a resource. So if you guys have any questions or you feel
we have one last question that we need from you to base on the class. As we discussed about, the class will take your question and we'll put it in a discussion, and they will get a participation grade. So Andreas, what is a question that you can post to the class so they can ponder on and discuss amongst themselves?
Sure. So the question that I thought of was, how would you solve the affordable housing crisis that we're facing in South Florida, but really across the U.S. in general? I think it's a very thought-provoking question, and it's a real issue that we're facing. So we should all start to kind of think through that and give it some thought. So
great question, man. Thanks a lot. And again, class, that's how are we going to tackle the affordable housing situation? Andreas, thank you very much again, man. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for your time.
We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.